to be making sure that we're encouraging our children to take something outside the walls of a school, something that they're interested in, something that's going to motivate them. We are actually exploring many opportunities through this report for children to have the opportunity to either do some online work or work out in the community. But, you know, at this time, this is an exciting time in education that we can be exploring many options. Mr. Speaker, with that, I thank you.
Thank you. The honourable member for Argyle on your final supplementary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the minister for her response to that. There are lots of programs that we should be able to develop in this program that will credit students for that. Mr. Speaker, CBC News reported in February 10, 2010, that in 15 years the province will have 30% fewer students and 70% fewer, more senior citizens, creating a shortage of taxpayer workers. This minister continues to...
Order, please. Oral questions put by members to ministers has expired. I will now recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Ready, Chris? Yeah, okay. Mr. Speaker, I wish I had the enthusiasm of that young man over there from Mr. Speaker, could you please call public bills for second reading?
Public bills for second reading.
Could you please call Bill 59, the Elections Act?
Bill 59, the Elections Act. The honourable member for Argyle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It was very nice last night to get a couple of minutes in on this bill before we adjourn for the evening. So it's my intention today to talk a little more at length at Bill number 59, the Elections Act, to make sure that that we in the Progressive Conservative seats have our say in what we feel are maybe good issues on this bill, and of course maybe what we find are maybe omissions to this Elections Act. You know, Mr. Speaker, the right to vote, in our estimation, is a cornerstone of democracy as we know it. The right to vote, of course, is enshrined in the Canadian Constitution, and although the Constitution now guarantees the right to vote, we cannot exercise this right for granted. Mr. Speaker, each of us in this House have had the honour of putting our names on the ballot and letting the people decide on a free vote on who they want to represent their concerns. And this is not something, Mr. Speaker, that I take lightly. We just, of course, came through a pretty interesting federal election, one where we saw different kinds of voting, vote splitting in some cases across the country, and the results of them, of course, were very, very telling on how things are happening. And you know, for the life of us, many people are asking the question of really what happened to the Liberal Party in Quebec, or more importantly, really where did those NDP folks come from in Quebec, and how were they able to win ridings that they really didn't even show up to campaign at? You know, but again, we as politicians, we as representatives need to accept the results as they have come on that night. You know, even though some of those people didn't do the work in order to get elected, they are now the representative of those areas, and will have the right to sit in the Parliament of Canada to take care of the communities that they were so lucky to be elected to. The right to vote recognizes the fundamental equality of each person, regardless of other social elements that come to define a person. Everyone's vote is equal, and this is the founding principle of democracy and the cornerstone of any successful democratic society. Now, you know, a couple of years ago, Nova Scotia had the opportunity to celebrate the 250 years of the birthplace of the parliamentary democracy as the first responsible government in the British Empire happened right here in these walls, and that's something that, of course, our province and our country can be proud of. But Mr. Speaker, things have definitely changed over the last 250 years. And voters today want election laws that are fair and, of course, are relevant and find a way to fit into their modern lives. Mr. Speaker, we're pleased to see the government has taken a number of our caucus's suggestions into account and, of course, included them in the bill. And I'm talking about the bill that we did present, the Modernization of Government Act, but there's a number of good aspects that have found their way into this bill. And ultimately, Mr. Speaker, because of all of us sitting in this legislature and having the opportunity to represent people across this province, ultimately we do see on occasion that our ideas do come together in some cases. There are, of course, the issue that we're fully supportive of strengthening the Electoral Commission to provide for a greater role in the oversight of the Chief Elections Officer. And Mr. Speaker, after all, transparency and accountability are key components to any modern political system. This is particular change is welcome on that front. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, our caucus is encouraged by the fact that the bill anticipates changes in technology and also provides for the piloting of new technological initiatives. And I can say that our world is changing day by day. Computers and the internet are making it quicker and easier to do everything, Mr. Speaker, and wisely the bill takes that into account. Mr. Speaker, it's quite interesting when we look at how many people vote, what is the average number of electors, how many people come out. And it's very interesting to see that, it continues to be, in my estimation, low. And I can only go as far as looking into my own constituency and the people that I get to speak to and try to ask them the questions. And I can say, Mr. Speaker, there's going to be people, it doesn't matter what you do, they're not going to vote. But there's a lot of people that are on that edge, that with a little bit of coaxing, a little bit of opportunity, that those individuals will come out. I find it ironic too is you watch a show on TV like American Idol, and they have millions of people that vote for those individuals that are singing on stage. And I'm going to bet there's probably more people in Nova Scotia that vote for those people. Let's say on Canadian Idol, when we had the opportunity for Canadian Idol, I like to look at the returns for that, of how many Nova Scotians voted for people from Nova Scotia that were on Canadian Idol. There was probably almost more people voting there than they were voting in an actual provincial election. So, yeah, no, the Minister of Transportation says it well, though, is vote early, vote often when it comes to a TV show like Canadian Idol, because you do have the opportunity to vote a number of times. As long as you have the text number, as long as you have the email, you can go in and you can vote as many times as you can. But doesn't mean that we can't throw out something like that and say, if there was a verifiable process that you could do it electronically, that we should do it. And that's why we like the idea of pilots. Let's either in some by-elections or what have you, try out some pieces of technology. Or even from a backhand standpoint, rather than having sheets and sheets and sheets and sheets of paper. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to visit a polling station, but there's stacks and stacks of papers of voter lists. And it is very manual in the way that it works, where you cross off, sign, cross off, number, rip off, tear off, and do all that stuff in order to cast that vote. So you know that person, as you check them along, resides in the constituency or the riding in which they're voting, or within that polling district. So why can't we have a computerized system, let's say, at the polling station itself? Why? I mean, today with the advent of iPads and playbooks and laptops and, of course, having 95% or 99% of our province covered by high-speed internet, why can't we just, go on a computer, make a check mark, click it in, and away you go? So that would actually help out insofar as if I was in a general election traveling through the province, and I was in Port Hawkesbury, and I would like to vote in the constituency of Argyle, why couldn't the computer system be able to allow me to vote in my own constituency? If we had a computerized system that would allow us to do that. We're almost there. So the point is that the pilots that we have here, the opportunity to do pilots, to be able to accept electronic voting systems, in one way or another. I'm not saying we need to go all crazy all at once, but to be able to try out some of these technologies, I think will give more opportunity for individuals to vote in their constituencies. Mr. Speaker, most people wouldn't know that they could vote anywhere when it comes to a general election, nor would they have an opportunity to actually do that on election day, unless they went and found out the returning office and did it. But hey, you could be going by a polling station and you go, oh my goodness, it's election day. I had completely forgotten. And you're 3.5 hours away from home. It's 6 o'clock at night, and you really don't have any opportunity. So why couldn't you just go pop into any polling station and cast your ballot for your constituency? So that's why I think the piloting is good. The electronic systems is another good aspect that we, as a Progressive Conservative Caucus, would like to see that we enjoy seeing in Bill number 59. Now, Mr. Speaker, of course, we don't feel that Bill 59 is perfect either, despite the fact that we feel the government's been responsive to our recommendations. Some of the serious flaws that are in it do need to be addressed, and of course that's why we've been chatting up this issue for a little bit now, and hoping that as the process within this House does move forward, insofar as making amendments or changes to the bill to, of course, strengthen. And that's the power of this House of Assembly. When everybody works together, then, of course, we have the opportunity to amend a bill to make it stronger than what it was when it was first introduced. Now, Mr. Speaker, of course, the glaring flaw that we do see in this bill is the government's failure to act on the issue of third-party advertising. The government can't pretend that this isn't an issue, and I was really happy to see the comments of the Minister of Justice on Friday, and of course again the last day or so, of wanting to bring in amendments in respect to third-party advertising. I did find it a bit strange that the minister would sort of say, well, I hadn't really thought about it. I didn't really get to read the report until X amount of time. Like I said, this is on page 6 of the report. So, why wouldn't we have taken that into account when this bill was introduced into the House? Unless you do start reading from the back of a document. I know there's some people that read things in different ways, but page 6. Madam Speaker, page 6. Well, I can say that we must read a lot quicker than the minister, because we read through it and were able to see the recommendation on third-party advertising. And Madam Speaker, the issue is that when we brought in our Act of Modernizing Government, and it talks about third-party advertising, the Liberal Party had talked about third-party advertising before now. So why wasn't this included in this bill? If it wasn't for maybe the possibility of some pressure from media or some different pressure that was exerted upon government to make this happen. So we just find it strange. It's kind of an odd way for government to go about creating legislation, to submit something one day and the next day say, whoops, I forgot to put that in, when we had been talking about it the whole time. Madam Speaker, we do feel that a solution, and one that has been presented to us, by the government members, is that we might be able to adopt a federal law in the way that the federal government looks at third-party advertising, and we would support that kind of amendment. Of course, taking into consideration the sizes or the monetary amounts that would be held within it. Of course, the federal way to do it, I think it's like $150,000 per organization. Well, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense here in Nova Scotia. $3,000 per constituency. So if there's a group within a constituency that does want to go and support a candidate or work against a candidate, depending on how that works. to go and spend $3,000 worth of advertising. So there are some adjustments there that I think that we, as the Progressive Conservative Caucus, would accept, maybe to leave that piece to regulation. You know, maybe the numbers can be agreed upon at a future date. But let's get those clauses in this piece of legislation so that we are able to go forward. And I can say that we're looking forward to maybe seeing an early copy of that. Maybe have the opportunity to caucus it to make sure that it is the amendments that we, as a Progressive Conservative Caucus, would look like and be able to accept. You know, I find it interesting. A lot of time we as MLAs have to take a lot of criticism on behalf of our profession, and I think it's imperative that we get this bill right. This is something that, you know, even though probably doesn't, you know, excite people in our constituencies, because a lot of times elections don't impact them until the election time is here. So do they actually think about an Elections Act or how that process goes about it during the time? But I can say that, you know, every little bit that we can make it easier for people to vote, and the more time that the more energy that we put in on putting people at the top of the political pyramid once again, I think is very, very important. You know, we do need to set out a higher standard for MLAs. You know, and that I think, Madam Speaker, will create, you know, a more of a restoration of the public's trust in what we do. The legislation should demonstrate to Nova Scotians that their political system is relevant and, of course, in their control. This legislation should reaffirm that the voter's voice is not silenced once the polls close, but rather this is a fine institution and of course, will always be the people's house. As we sit in this historic chamber, we should never forget that the people have put their trust in us and that they're asking us to be the elected voice that brings their concerns in the process. And we should not forget that although we are all but one voice, or one of 52 in here, or 51 at this point, we speak in the collective voice of our constituents, and that is, of course, a privilege that is not taken lightly. We've seen too often that elected officials forget that the balance of power lays in the hands of the voters. And as I mentioned before, parliamentary democracy is a 250-year-old practice here in our province, and although voting is a precious right not to be tampered with, the ways in which we vote must expand and adapt to our ever-changing lives. One of the things that we also found to be missing in this piece of legislation, one that we did talk about a number of times, is the issue of individuals with disability. You know, we've asked, one of our suggestions has been make sure that it's introduced to have a non-voting member or even a voting member in the Nova Scotia Electoral Commission, an individual representative of course, the disabled community. Because I mean, I don't know how often during elections, and it happened to me in 2 elections already, where constituents have come forward and say, you know, listen, I can't get into that polling station. And you call the RO or what have you and ask about, you know, is it accessible? Well, the answer you get, well, yeah, it has a ramp. Well, I don't know if you've spent any time with somebody, let's say, in a wheelchair, and to understand that it takes a little more than a ramp to get somebody into a polling booth. Sometimes the doors aren't big enough. Sometimes there's a lip at the door that you can't really get the wheels of the wheelchair over. You know, for an able-bodied person, you would look at that, well, the ramp's there, we should be able to get the person in and they can vote, and that'll be the end of it. But in many cases, some of these old halls or old churches or old schools that these polling stations end up in are not accessible to a disabled person. So I think a little more emphasis in the Electoral Commission would be a very important piece to really make it that we don't forget that it's a little more than just making sure there's a ramp or an accessible bathroom. It's making sure that it's there, but we need to have a person there to make sure that it's always at top of mind when this happens. You know, Mr. Speaker, or Madam Speaker, regardless of their physical ability, everybody should be able to cast a vote. So again, to that end, we ask that every polling station in the riding be accessible with level access, with an internal structure that allows persons with disabilities to cast their ballots without barrier or obstruction. And Bill 59 requires only that one polling station in each riding be accessible, although that they did take our suggestion that the building cannot have internal structure problems and that would prevent a person with a disability from easily casting their ballot. So we need to make sure that, I know sometimes it's physically impossible to have every building accessible, but to make sure that we know that there's one next door that they can actually get into, not to be forgotten. You know, we had just again gone through a federal election, and you know, only now are we starting to hear some of the stories coming back of being able to vote. And one that I heard of already on 2 occasions now, and I'm wondering how we can fit this maybe into the bill, or how that adjustment can happen, is the issue of identification. And I know we need to make sure that the person that is voting is the person that has the card, that the resident of that address, and all that information. Yet what we have, and the sort of the basic structure of polling stations, especially in rural areas, I know it's much harder to do in a more urban setting where there, of course, is a lot of transient population where people are moving in and moving out, so it's hard to know exactly who's there. But the issue of identification is one that continually I hear of in my writing. So you have an individual, for example, who goes to vote, who has lived in that community for 63 years, who is known by every single person sitting at those tables, but because they don't have their driver's license, and one of the individuals that I heard of actually doesn't have a driver's license, so it makes it that much more difficult. But I mean, realistically, if everybody knows who that person is, they can cross his name off and let the guy vote. So what you end up having are people of, in my estimation, well, I've heard it more for people of a more advanced age, so 60s, 70s, and even 80s in some cases that maybe don't have those pieces of identification at this point, who have voted their whole lives, are getting there, looking at people and say, listen, you can't vote because you don't have your driver's license. Well, I'm your uncle, cousin, next door neighbor, and they're not letting them vote. So this is an issue in the federal election, I do know, Madam Speaker, but we need to make sure that it's strong in the bill. Make sure that this doesn't happen, because finally you have people that are voting. They're actually showing up to the polling station, and they're getting frustrated and mad and leaving. And if we think we're going to get them to come vote again, I think we are mistaken, because we should not have that kind of barrier to that. Madam Speaker, we feel that Bill 59 again, is a really good first stab at things. We do hope that there will be a number of amendments again to go to the issue of third-party advertising, and again to strengthen not only, let's say, third-party advertising. I think we've all in one way or another been attached to one negative thing when it came to the way monies are gathered in this province, whether it's mainland trades, whether it's trust funds, whether it's whatever. We need to make sure that this information is accessible and it can make true and distinct change to what's happening in this province. Not only in third-party advertising, but in many other pieces. Madam Speaker, we think that every vote counts. We think that we should find opportunities to get younger folks.
The Honourable Member, thank you, Member for Argyle.
Thank you. I know maybe I wasn't speaking loud enough. Maybe that was the suggestion, that I was starting to get too quiet on this. Was I getting too quiet? I know the Minister of Transportation is over there listening, and I do know the member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island, because he was commented along the way as I was chatting, as he always does. And I would hope that maybe during discussion on Bill number 59, that of course that member would get up and speak. You know, I would love it that when I'm finished my time, that he would take that opportunity and stand and of course speak to Bill, because I know he seems to have lots of great ideas sitting over there, and I'm hoping that the Minister of Justice has spoken to that member to make sure that his ideas are incorporated within this bill. Again, going back to youth. On back. I need some water on that one. Going back to the youth vote, and you know, I don't know what the true answer to this one is, but I think it really sits with making sure that we're teaching our children the value of government, the value of the democratic process. I enjoy, Madam Speaker, having the opportunity to visit. I think in Echo Belleville, I think is grade 5 that has the civics course, and sit and ask and sit and answer questions of the grade 5 children. So these are the 10-11s as they're going through their course, and to really see what their thoughts. Well, they're asking everything from, you know, what's the mace, what is the makeup of the House of Assembly, who's in government, what does the Premier wear? You know, it's a whole bunch of really neat questions. Yeah, no, there's a whole bunch of really neat questions as the hour goes on of it. I try to help them out a little bit. Of course, the House of Assembly does produce a number of documents that really helps out, whether it's the symbols of the House of Assembly, whether it's, and I forget the one that was done for Democracy 250. There was a really nice booklet. There's one in French and English that we're able to do. It does come in handy for me because it explains a lot of the things that they are getting as a base part of their course of what the process is in Nova Scotia. And I think that's something that should be held within the Elections Act. How do we make sure that children in school are getting this kind of instruction from their school teachers? I'm hoping that every member of this House takes the opportunity to visit a grade 5, a grade 6, a grade 7, whatever it is, and even to grade 12. I remember one of my visits to a grade 12 class. Some of them who were 18 years of age, or just about to be 18 years of age when the election would have rolled around, who knew very little about our process, of what even level of government that I represent. So there's some very basic things that, you know, if you were just hanging out in your community, you probably wouldn't know of who's responsible for what, who's responsible for roads and education, who's responsible for your streetlights, who's responsible for your garbage pickup, who's responsible for defense, who's responsible for that. So it comes in very interesting of exactly what levels of government, who's doing what, and how everyone interacts and works together. And I think that should be a part of the curriculum. Now, because of the federal election just the other day, I know there was basically a mock election. All the kids in, I think, the upper classes of Echo Belleville, I think it was grade 4, 5, and 6, had the opportunity to vote for one of the members, and overwhelmingly the result was for the current member, was for Mr. Kerr. In second was the Liberal, Mr. Thibault, and in third, Mr. Barron, who was the representative of the NDP, and I think we had a Green, but I don't recall who that person was. So that's funny because it's very representative of what the election actually turned out to be. I think what we should do is never mind the polling that we do in Ottawa or the polling that we do at CRA, but just go and ask your grade 5s exactly what they think what the election is going to turn out, because I don't think they've ever been wrong. I think the grade 5s in Pubnico, I was talking to the school teacher there, I think it was last election, and honest to goodness, they've never been wrong. They have called the election every time that they've had the opportunity. So kids know what's going on, whether it's the instruction they're receiving in school, what they're hearing from their parents, what they're hearing from their friends, and I know it's an important one. And just before I finish up on talking about how we try to get children involved in elections in one way or another, how do we get them to know what's going on? You know, I get a kick out of my 12-year-old Andre. Andre tends to be a little more politically connected than I ever was at 12 years of age, and he tends to be very conservative in his thinking, and gets mad at his friends who sort of torment him just a little bit, because actually he's interested in politics and they're not. They really couldn't care less, really, in a way, but he can't understand why they're not interested in it at all. So, you know, there are kids out there, and I think we've all had kids like that in our constituencies, in our constituency associations. You know, you can never seem to get a youth member, and then all of a sudden one kid rolls around 13, 14, 15 years of age and would do anything for it. You know, will spend hours on end making phone calls, will spend hours on end putting up signs, will go to every possible rally that they possibly can go to. But there's such a low number of those ones. You know, I wish I could have, you know, 6 of those guys in my constituency. And I know that because I come from a small constituency, my association tends to be small, but just a couple of those youth members would make a world of difference. And maybe that's incumbent upon all of us as MLAs, as political figures, to make sure that we go and get a hold of some of these individuals that we know that have that political mind or politically interested, and get them involved in one party or another. And like I say, when I sit with kids in grade 5 or grade 6, or even the ones in grade 11, grade 12, it's, you know, listen, I represent a party, the Progressive Conservative Party, but at the end of the day, I really don't mind if you're going to go and support the NDP or you're going to support the Liberal Party. At least you're involved in a process that is good, that does do good things for Nova Scotians. But again, I always find it very interesting that when kids go out and vote, you give them the opportunity to vote for someone, and they predict how that election is going to go. I think that's very valuable for them. So that brings us to the next step of again, voting technologies. How do we give them opportunities? You know, where is elections going to go? We've seen across North America different systems being used, whether they're electronic, whether they're manual, whether they're mechanical. You know, and you know, we went through some U.S. elections where we got stuck with hanging chads and a whole bunch of other fun things like that. Well, we have a chad that works for us, so we do harass him once in a while about hanging chads, but ultimately it's not exactly the same thing. But there are some case studies that we can look at across North America to give us an idea of maybe where we should be going. You know, we in Nova Scotia and we in Canada use an old system. It's a very robust system. As long as people aren't stealing your ballot boxes, you can have some pretty good results on them, making sure that every vote is being counted. It is still, I think, apt that people can misread some of those ballots. lots of things are thrown out. Ballots aren't counted sometimes because of their uncertainty. But for the most part, we have a very robust system in which to be able to do that. Again, we are looking forward to seeing the amendments for Bill number 59. We hope that we're going to be able to agree that this is the way forward to ensure that third-party advertising is being addressed in a responsible manner. And we're hoping that there's other amendments maybe that can come along over time to make our system much more robust and inclusive to all Nova Scotians. I do have some more to say, but maybe at this time, if the House Leader is ready to call other things, I'll go slowly in the way I'm talking. I'll drink some water while I'm waiting. Well, we could talk about my last election. On each election, and I got to say, I mean, my election, the last election, of course, is one that I will cherish always. Simply because when a lot of my friends didn't return to this House, I was returned to this House with a margin like a percentage off of where it was before. Instead of taking 67% of the vote in my constituency, I think I only took 66% of that. So you know, I was very happy that you know that I lost a little bit, but not too badly. So I'm hoping that that I do continue to represent the constituents of Argyle. But there was lots of great friends that, of course, didn't make it back here. But there are a whole batch of new friends that are here that we get to work with on a regular basis. Again, there's some issues that we'd like to discuss, and maybe some issues. So maybe if we have a look at maybe some amendments as we roll around. So in the meantime, I'd like to adjourn debate on this bill to come back at another time.
Thank you. I recognize. Thank you. The motion is to adjourn debate. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. I now recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish you to now leave, and the House revolves itself into the Committee of the Whole House on bills.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Order, please. The Committee of the Whole House on Bills will come to order. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you please call Bill number 1, the Motor Vehicle Act?
Thank you. I now call Bill number 1, the Motor Vehicle Act.
Madam Chair, Bill number 1 has 3 clauses and was reported back from Law Amendments Committee without any amendments.
Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Shall clause 1 carry? Carried. Shall the remaining clauses carry? Carried. Shall the title carry? Carried. Shall the bill carry? Carried. Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you please call Bill number 7, the Justice Administration Amendment 2011?
I now call Bill number 7, the Justice Administration Amendment.
Madam Chair, Bill number 7 was also reported back from the Law Amendments Committee without amendments and contains 29 clauses.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Agreed. Shall clause 1 carry? Shall the remaining clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? Thank you. I now recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you please call Bill 13, the Pharmacy Act?
I now call Bill number 13, the Pharmacy Act.
Madam Chair, it was also reported back without amendments from the Law Amendments Committee, and Bill number 13 contains 86 clauses.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Agreed. Shall clause number 1 carry? Carried. Shall the remaining clauses carry? Carried. Shall the title carry? Carried. Shall the bill carry? Carried. Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Chair, could you please call Bill number 19, the Nova Scotia Business Incorporated Act?
I now call Bill number 19, the Nova Scotia Business Incorporated Act.
Madam Chair, Bill number 19 contains 3 clauses and was reported back from the Law Amendments Committee without any amendments.
Is that agreed? Agreed. Shall clause number 1 carry? Carried. Shall the remaining clauses carry? Carried. Shall the title carry? Carried. Shall the bill carry? Carried. Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Chair, could you please call Bill number 21, the Public Archives Act?
I now call Bill number 21, the Public Archives Act.
Madam Chair, Bill number 21 was reported back from Law Amendments Committee without any amendments and contains 4 clauses.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Agreed. Shall clause number 1 carry? Carried. Shall the remaining clauses carry? Carried. Shall the title carry? Carried. Shall the bill carry? Carried. Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Chair, could you please call Bill number 25, the Occupational Health and Safety Act?
I now call Bill number 25, the Occupational Health and Safety Act.
Madam Chair, Bill number 25 was reported back without amendments from the Law Amendments Committee and contains 8 clauses.
Is that agreed? Shall clause number 1 carry? Shall the remaining clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, could you please call Bill number 27, the Financial Measures Act 2011?
Thank you. I call Bill number 27, the Financial Measures Act 2011.
Madam Chair, this Bill 27 was also reported back without amendments from the Law Amendments Committee and contains 32 clauses.
Is that agreed? Shall clause number 1 carry? Shall the remaining clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, with the concurrence of the committee, we will bring forward the bills that were brought into committee of the whole today, referred from committee. Do I get approval on that? Agreed?
Is it agreed? Agreed.
So, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, excuse me, what I'm going to do is there will be 6 bills in total that I'll be bringing forward. The first 4 we'll deal with will not have amendments, and the last 2 will have amendments.
Okay.
So my first bill is Bill 30, the Land Registration Act.
Thank you. I now call Bill number 30, the Land Registration Act.
Madam Chair, Bill 30 was reported back without amendments from the Law Amendments Committee and contains 5 clauses.
Is that agreed? Shall clause number 1 carry? Shall the remaining clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you please call Bill number 33, the Court Administrative Reform Act?
I call Bill number 33, the Court and Administrative Reform Act.
Madam Chair, Bill number 33 was referred without amendments by the Law Amendments Committee and contains one clause.
Is that agreed? Shall clause number 1 carry? Shall the remaining clauses carry? Oh, there are no other remaining. Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Chair, could you please call the Halifax Regional Municipal Charter and Municipal Government Act?
Thank you. I now call Bill number 42. Would that be correct? Yep. Yeah. 42, Halifax Regional Municipality Charter and Municipal Government Act. We're seeing amendments to
Well, we got one more than.
Okay.
42 is on 43.
Madam Chair, Bill number 42 was reported back with amendments by the Committee on Law Amendments. The amendments are few and very straightforward. On page 1, clause 1, line 1, add the words section 2 of before the word chapter, and in lines 2 and 3, delete of clause 2. Those are the sum total of the amendments, and the bill has 4 clauses.
Thank you. For the benefit of the committee, I want to explain that as we consider this bill and any other bills that may be called at this meeting, we'll be considering the bill in the form containing the amendments already made by the Committee on Law Amendments. If I'm asking the committee if a clause carries as amended, I will be referring to amendments that will have been moved during our debate in this committee. Is that agreed? Agreed. Shall clause number 1 carry? Carry. Shall the remaining clauses carry? Carry. Shall the title carry? Carry. And shall the bill carry? Carry. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you please call Bill number 43, the Interior Designers Act?
I now call Bill number 43, the Interior Designers Act.
Madam Chair, this bill was reported back by the Law Amendments Committee without any amendments and contains 2 clauses.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Agreed. Shall clause number 1 carry? Carry. Shall the remaining clauses carry? Carry. Shall the title carry? Carry. Shall the bill carry? Carry. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, could you please call Bill number 47, the Summaries Proceedings Act?
I call Bill number 47, the Summaries Proceedings Act.
Madam Chair, this bill was referred back from the Law Amendments Committee with certain amendments, and if you wish, I can read them.
Thank you.
Page 1, subclause 1(2), delete and substitute the following. 2, for greater certainty, the regulations made by the Governor and Council pursuant to subsection 8(3) of Chapter 450 before the coming into force of subsection 1 continue to apply as if that subsection had not been enacted and may be amended by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice as required. Page 1, subclause 2(2), delete and substitute the following. For greater certainty, the regulations made by the Governor and Council pursuant to subsection 8, capital A, 8 of Chapter 450 before the coming into force of subsection 1 continue to apply as if that subsection had not been enacted and may be amended by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice as required. And finally, page 2, subclause 3(2), delete and substitute the following. For greater certainty, the regulations made by the Governor and Council pursuant to subsection 8, capital B3 of Chapter 450 before the coming into force of subsection 1 continue to apply as if that subsection had not been enacted and may be amended by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice as required. Those are all the amendments made by the Law Amendments Committee.
Is that agreed? Agreed. Shall clause number 1 carry? Shall the remaining clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? I now recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
I ask the committee to now rise and report progress. Chair.
Thank you. The Honourable Government. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Yes, I apologize, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, could you please call Bill 15? And that
Thank you.
is
I now call Bill number 15, the Electricities Act.
Madam Chair, this bill contains 3 clauses and was amended by the Law Amendments Committee in the following manner. Page 1, Clause 3, add the number 1 in brackets after the section number and add the following subsections. 2, which reads, Section 5 of Chapter 25, as amended by Chapter 14 of the Acts of 2010, is further amended by adding immediately after subsection 1 the following subsection, 1 capital A. The Minister shall make regulations requiring the achievement of 40% renewable electricity by 2020. 3, subsection 5.2 of Chapter 25 is amended by striking out, quote, subsection 1, end quote, in the second line and substituting, quote, this section, end quote. Those are all the amendments.
Thank you. Shall clause number 1 carry? Shall the remaining clauses carry? Shall the title carry? Shall the bill carry? Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Let's see if we can get it right this time, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I wish you to now rise and the committee to report progress.
Thank you. The motion is carried. The committee will now rise and report its business to the House. Please. The Chair of the Committee of the Whole House on Bills reports.
That the committee has met and considered the following 13 bills. Bill number 1, Bill number 7, Bill number 13, Bill number 19, Bill number 21, Bill number 25, Bill number 27, Bill number 15, Bill number 30, Bill number 33, Bill number 42, Bill number 43, and Bill number 47, and has been instructed to report them to the favorable consideration of the House.
Thank you. Ordered that these bills be read for a third time on a future date. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there's some more work to be done today, but I would ask the indulgence of the House to take approximately a 20-minute break. Recess.
Thank you. We'll adjourn, recess for 20 minutes approximately. Thank you. Order, please. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with the indulgence of the House, can we revert back to daily routine, tabling or presenting reports of committees?
Is it agreed? Thank you. I recognize the Chair of the Private and Local Bills Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as Chair of Private and Local Bills Committee, I'm directed to report the committee has met and considered the following bills. Number 20, an act to amend Chapter 132 of the Acts of 1948, which is an act to incorporate the trustees of Liverpool United Baptist Church. And Bill number 22, an act to amend Chapter 59 of the Acts of 1993, which is an act respecting the Public Service Commission of Bridgewater.
Thank you.
Thank you. And recommends the committee. What? Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
The committee recommends these bills to the favorable consideration of the House without amendment. Okay.
Thank you. Order that these bills be referred to the Committee of the Whole House on Bills. I recognize the Honourable Government Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the Chairman of Committee on Law Amendments, I'm directed to report that the committee has met and considered the following bills. Bill number 51, an act to amend Chapter 371 of the Revised Statute of 1989, the Public Highways Act. Bill number 54, an act to amend Chapter 9 of the Acts of 1998, the Cemeteries Protection Act. And Bill number 56, an act to amend Chapter 28 of the Acts of 1996, the Real Estate Trading Act. The committee recommends these bills to the favorable consideration of the House without amendment.
Thank you. The Honourable Government Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As Chair, on behalf of the Chairman of Law Amendments, I'm directed to report that the committee has met and considered the following bills. Bill number 35, an act respecting the control of body armour. And the committee recommends these bills to the favourable consideration of the House with certain amendments.
Thank you. Ordered that these bills be referred to the Committee of the Whole on Bills. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, could you please call bills for second reading?
Bills for second reading.
Bill number 59.
I now call Bill number 59. I recognize the Honourable Member for Argyll.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Pleasure to stand for a few last minutes in speaking to Bill number 59. We're very happy to see a press release released by the government a few moments ago in regards to what we've been asking for along the way is basically what the amendment will look like, what will it be adopting as far as third-party advertising, and I just want to read a few pieces quickly out of here before I sit down. Basically says under the Act, third parties will be allowed to spend a maximum of $10,000 on election advertising. No more than $2,000 may be spent in a signal constituency. These limits will apply to any third party, including a corporation, trade union, organization, or individual. The amendment also contains rules to prevent third parties from subdividing or joining together to avoid adhering to spending limits. The press release further goes on and says third parties will have to clearly identify themselves in any advertising. They will also have to register with the Chief Electoral Officer if the spending is over $500 on election advertising. The Chief Electoral Officer will maintain a registry of third parties. And as soon as I get another copy of this, I'll submit that for the chair. So we feel these are good moves forward. It's not quite exactly what we had proposed in our Modernization Act, but they do come pretty close. I think we had looked at 1.3% of total spending within a constituency, which is sort of in the $50,000, and then multiply that by the 1.3%, or the total national campaign, or the provincial campaign. So these numbers are I think well within those limits, and ones that we can say that we'll look forward to seeing the full amendment as this does go forward to law amendments. So with that, I want to thank the government for bringing these amendments forward, and look forward to discussing them in law amendments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I recognize the Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move second reading of Bill 59, the Elections Act.
Thank you. Question is for second reading of Bill number 59, the Elections Act. All in favour? Those opposed? The motion is carried.
Bill number 59, entitled An Act Respecting the Election of Members to the House of Assembly and Electoral Finance.
Ordered that this bill be referred to the Committee on Law Amendments. Recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With the indulgence of the House, look for waiver to move to third reading the bills that we had passed in Committee of the Whole today. If it's necessary, I'll read them in. If you're comfortable, we'll just move forward.
Is it agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, could you please call the motor vehicle, Bill number 1, the Motor Vehicle Act for third reading?
I now call Bill number 1, the Motor Vehicle Act for third reading. Questions called? All in favour? Aye. Those opposed? The motion is carried.
Bill number 1, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 293 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Motor Vehicle Act.
Thank you. Ordered that the bill do pass. Ordered that the title be as read by the clerk. Ordered that the bill be engrossed. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, could you please call Bill number 7, the Justice